My name is Rachel Carter, and what my sister did to me at her wedding in front of 200 guests is something I still can't believe actually happened. But what her groom did right after? That's what no one saw coming. Before I tell you everything, comment your country and hit subscribe, because stories like this only get crazier the deeper you go. I'm a single mom. I've been one for 6 years now, ever since my ex walked out on me and our newborn daughter like we were nothing. No goodbye, no explanation, just gone. And while I was working double shifts, raising my daughter alone, trying to rebuild my life from scratch, my sister, Vanessa, was building a very different life. Perfect job, perfect friends, perfect fiancé, the kind of life she loved showing off on social media, like it was some kind of competition I had already lost. Growing up, she was always the favorite, the pretty one, the successful one, and I was just the one who made bad choices. At least that's what she liked to remind me of. Still, when she got engaged, I told myself things would be different. She's my sister, right? Maybe this was our chance to reconnect. So when she invited me to her wedding, I said yes, even though deep down I knew I didn't belong in her world anymore. The wedding was everything you'd expect from Vanessa. Luxurious venue, designer decorations, guests dressed like they stepped out of a magazine. I showed up in the only dress I could afford that still made me feel confident, holding my daughter's tiny hand as we walked in together. And for a moment, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe she really wanted me there. She hugged me, smiled for the cameras, even introduced me to a few guests. But something felt off. The smiles didn't reach her eyes. The way her friends looked at me, it was like they already knew something I didn't. I tried to ignore it. I sat quietly, kept to myself, made sure my daughter was comfortable. I didn't want any trouble. Not today. Not at her wedding. But then came the reception. The speeches. The moment where everything shifted. Vanessa grabbed the microphone, laughing, glowing, completely in her element. She started with the usual, thanking guests, praising her husband, talking about love and family. And then she looked straight at me. I felt it before she even said a word, that cold, familiar feeling in my chest. "And of course," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "I have to thank my sister Rachel for being here tonight." A few people clapped politely, I forced a smile. But then she tilted her head, smirked, and added, "It really means a lot that even with everything going on in her complicated life, she still managed to show up." The room went quiet. I felt every pair of eyes turn toward me. My hands started shaking. I knew that tone. I knew exactly where this was going. And in that moment, I realized she didn't invite me to be part of her wedding. She invited me to be the joke. The silence in the room stretched just long enough to make my chest tighten. And then Vanessa laughed softly into the microphone like she had just said something charming instead of cruel, and a few of her friends joined in. Hesitant at first, then louder, more comfortable, like they'd been given permission to laugh at me openly, and I could feel my daughter's small hand squeezing mine as she looked up at me, confused, sensing something was wrong even if she didn't fully understand it. And I forced myself to stay still, to not react, because the last thing I wanted was to give Vanessa exactly what she wanted, a scene. But she wasn't done, not even close, because she shifted her weight, glanced around the room dramatically, and said, "I mean, let's be honest. Growing up, Rachel was always the one we worried about." And this time, the laughter came quicker, sharper, cutting straight through me. And I felt my face burn as memories I had spent years trying to bury came rushing back. Every judgmental look, every whispered comment, every time she made me feel like I was less than her. And yet, I stayed silent, gripping the edge of my chair, reminding myself I was here for one reason only, to prove that I could arise above this, that I wasn't the same broken person she thought I was. But then she delivered the line that shattered whatever control I had left, because she smiled wider, leaned closer to the mic, and said, "But hey, at least she gave us a beautiful reminder tonight of what happens when you don't plan your life properly, right?" And this time, the room didn't hesitate. Laughter echoed across the tables, some people looking uncomfortable, others clearly entertained, and I heard someone whisper, "single mom," just loud enough for it to reach me. And that was it. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly enough that I knew I couldn't sit there another second pretending this was okay. So I slowly stood up, my legs trembling, but my head held high, my daughter still holding my hand as I prepared to walk out of that room with whatever dignity I had left, because I refused to let her see me break in front of people who had already decided who I was. And for a second, I thought that would be the end of it, that I would leave, Vanessa would get her laughs, and the night would go on like nothing happened. But just as I took my first step away from the table, I heard a voice cut through the noise, calm but firm, a voice that didn't belong to the crowd, didn't belong to the laughter, didn't belong to the cruelty. "Vanessa, that's enough." And the entire room froze, because that voice came from the one person no one expected to interrupt her, the groom. And I turned slowly, my heart pounding, as every eye in the room shifted from me to him. And the look on his face wasn't amused, wasn't embarrassed, wasn't even uncertain. It was something else entirely, something serious, something that made the energy in the room change in an instant. And for the first time that night, Vanessa's smile faltered just slightly, just enough for me to see it. And in that moment, I realized something had just shifted. Not in my favor yet, not completely, but enough to make one thing painfully clear. This wasn't going to end the way she planned. You could feel the entire room holding its breath as Daniel stepped forward, taking the microphone gently but firmly out of Vanessa's hand. And for a moment, she just stared at him, confused, like this wasn't part of the script she had carefully written in her head. And he didn't even look at her right away. His eyes moved across the room, then landed on me, steady and calm. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be, because every single person was already listening. "I think we've all laughed enough," he said. And the tension in the air shifted instantly, the kind of silence that makes people sit up straighter, suddenly unsure of where they stand. And Vanessa let out a nervous laugh, trying to brush it off. "Daniel, it's just a joke." But he didn't let her finish. "No," he said, more firmly this time, finally turning to face her. "It's not." And I saw it then, the flicker of panic in her eyes, small but real, because whatever was happening now, she wasn't in control of it anymore. And he turned back to the guests, adjusting his grip on the microphone. "What you all just heard," he continued, "wasn't humor, it was cruelty." And a few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some lowering their gaze, others glancing at Vanessa like they were seeing her for the first time. And then he said something that made my heart stop completely. "Rachel didn't just show up tonight. She's the reason this wedding even exists." And a ripple of confusion spread through the room, whispers starting to build, and Vanessa's face went pale as she quickly stepped closer to him, her voice low but urgent. "Daniel, what are you doing?" But he took a small step back, just enough to create distance between them, and continued, 6 years ago, when I was starting my first business, I had nothing. No investors, no support, nothing but an idea that everyone said would fail." He paused, looking straight at me again, and I felt my breath catch in my throat, because suddenly I knew exactly where this was going. "Except one person believed in me," he said quietly. "Rachel." And now the room was completely silent. No whispers, no movement, just stunned attention as everything began to connect. "She didn't know me well," he added. "She had no reason to trust me, but she still invested the only savings she had at the time, money she could have used to make her own life easier. And she never asked for recognition, never asked for anything in return." And I could feel my eyes burning as memories flooded back. Late nights, difficult choices, believing in something when I barely believed in myself. And he took a slow breath before delivering the final blow. That investment turned into the company that paid for this entire wedding, he said, his voice steady. Every detail, every decoration, every luxury you see here tonight exists because of her. And this time, the reaction wasn't laughter. It was shock, raw and undeniable. People turning toward me with completely different expressions now, respect replacing judgment. And then I saw Vanessa's world crumble in real time as she shook her head, whispering, "No, no, you weren't supposed to say that." But it was too late, because the truth was already out, and Daniel looked at her one last time, his expression no longer conflicted, but certain. "You don't get to stand here and tear down the person who helped build everything you're standing on," he said, and then he stepped away from her completely, placing the microphone down as the room erupted, not in laughter this time, but in murmurs, gasps, the sound of people realizing they had been part of something ugly. And I stood there, still holding my daughter's hand, no longer shaking, no longer small, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the girl they pitied or judged. I was the woman they had completely underestimated.